That introduction, that music, that beautiful graphics package can mean only one thing. Yes, the Dark Six back. Conversations and culture here of the F3 Nation, joined by a few other high-impact men from across the F3 Nation, part of a shared leadership team. It's your boy Hello Kitty here with these guys. Got Dark Helmet, Gobbler, CSD, GMO, who I now call GMO, and Bing, because it's just more fun to say it that fast. GMO just walked off into the distance somewhere, and back he comes.
Fine.
Oh, hey guys, what's up? How we feeling?
Hey,
good brother.
Fan.
I just saw you, Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's true. A number of us and GMO, a number of us were together at the F3 tenure. Half, I guess. Half. No, 4/6.
4/6.
4/6.
2/3.
Yeah, man. What
math.
What a weekend we're coming off of here. And I hate to do the let's talk about the amazing time we had together with a couple guys that weren't there and do all that, but man, cool.
Hey, do you want to change your name on the screen to FOMO? Yes, did you want to do it?
But
no,
holy
we're
cow,
very sad
man.
that
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say we're very sad that Bing and CSD couldn't be there, but it was an excellent weekend. It really was.
I kept texting you guys, but nobody was responding to me. So it just
We're
made
just
it
having
much
an awesome
worse.
time. It's hard to text when you're having an awesome time.
We're building sand castles.
To be fair, they had their Concentrica in line, and they were doing things with their family that needed to be done. And I believe CSD's M was actually the most disappointed not to be there out of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
True story.
Well, can we give a little kudos to both of those guys? Because both of these guys, Bing and Carmen Sandiego, did a ton of work to help us get prepared to expand.
What did Bing do?
He's
what did Bing do?
If not,
okay. I was like, CSD single-handedly registered all these idiots, gave all these more. I mean, just all this.
I got one thing to say. I got one thing to say. Honored. Move on.
Oh, okay.
Well said.
CSD's the one that did the heavy lifting. I felt terrible.
Yeah, I'm outsourcing customer service next year or next time.
Oh, I made it very clear to Slaughter. Next time we do this, a professional event company is handling it, and we're not involved because it was difficult. It was difficult. It was worth it for sure, but it was difficult.
355 deep at the Beachside Convergence, which was pretty incredible, man. Amazing moments that happened along that. I encourage you guys to go back and listen to the live COT podcast that we recorded on Sunday morning. If you haven't, it's on YouTube here. It's on all of our podcast channels. We did our first live show with dozens of packs. It was super fun, man. I grabbed Helmet afterwards. It's like, we should do this every week.
The live element was quite nice. And there were so many, yes, there were a lot of fun things that happened, but there were a lot of really impactful and powerful moments that came out of the weekend as well, I think. And it started probably with Friday night. I don't remember any specific from Friday night. Although, of course, my brilliant words that everyone, there's that.
Totally.
But starting on Saturday morning, that dude that got EH'd on the fly, it's so funny. Like Olaf has this crazy podcast the week before about, how to EH, like the best practices with stuff worth trying, guys, about EHing, right? Now, do I agree with how Olaf does it? No, I don't. I think he's an absolute lunatic.
Right.
But
he's our lunatic.
We love
well, he's our lunatic, and I love the guy, but and I say I don't agree. Like I agree with him doing it. I could never do that. It would just be, it wouldn't work, right? But it works for him. And so he snags this dude off the beach. And I was like, Olaf, this poor guy probably just wanted a quiet morning. I could not have been more wrong.
Right. So check this out. Here's what happens. We split everybody up into all these different groups, right? Because when you got 400 guys, 355 guys, you got to break them up. And we probably had, 8 or 9 sort of platoons head off to have their workouts. Ours, freaking beauty, made us swim across the intercoastal waterway through a current. It was ridiculous. But this group,
heard you got to the other side, he jumps up and he goes, nobody died.
Okay. That is what he said. Nobody died. Well, that's a low bar there, beauty.
Yeah, well, it is true. So this guy is sitting on the beach and they EH him. He works out with them for, 20, 30 minutes till the end of the workout. We named the guy, and long story short, we'll jump ahead. He's a big soccer fan, right? And so we named him Rojas, like Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. Right?
So I don't remember his actual hospital, but he was from the city in Mexico where football originated.
Yeah. Right.
And so it was
a great name for him. He loved it, right? He said he loved it. It was awesome. The whole place was into it. Well, come to find out, he didn't tell us this in the moment. He conveyed this later. 3 months ago, That man's mother passed away. He was sitting on the beach that morning thinking about her and praying. We found him. We recruited him. He came to us. We named him Rojas. It was her maiden name. That's her maiden name.
Feels hearing it again. Leave room for the miracles.
Oh my gosh. I'm like a little, anyways, it's incredible, man. Like, and that man was brought to us and we were brought to him in that moment. So that was just absolutely amazing.
And that, not to belabor the point, but that just sort of points up the idea, right? That, and there were, tons of people who stopped and asked or, whatever, as they see this foolishness happening up and down the whole beach. But it just really speaks to the fact that you don't know. You don't know. And that's why Olaf does what he does the way that he does it, and he's like, you just don't know. You don't know who needs it. And guys, it's America. They can walk away. They can be like, hey, nut job. No, thanks. Appreciate you or whatever. Right. But the guys who jump in, there must be something there, and this guy, I think he'll stick, because he had a really cool experience. So.
Yeah, I just want to reflect a little bit on Olaf. He's crazy, like you said, and he's ours, but he has low pride. He has no shame. He is on mission, and he is willing.
I wish you would get some shame, but
No, I love him.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And I think that's what we all need a little bit of, lower pride, less shame or less worry what anybody's going to think, and just get out there and offer it up and just invite any guy you see to join us. This is a beautiful thing we've got going here, right?
Yeah, again, not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. Not the way that happens, but I do it a different way. I talk to people passing by. I told them plenty of things, but
see if we have a podcast on how you do that.
I think ultimately, if you look at a guy who's, unlocked, if you want to call it that, a guy that's invigorated. He came down to the Suncoast for a vacation, and prior to our grow ruck, and even elevated our rucking knowledge, which wasn't very high at the moment, but really, really invigorated our guys just with his passion, his excitement, his love for everything F3. I think he came to 4 or 5 workouts that week, and guys were sad to see him go. And it's just because of his, his vigor and his excitement and what he's looking to contribute because of what F3 has given him. So I think, you heard a lot of the conversations this weekend, and I think it was OBT that talked a lot about, what happens when you queue, and talked about the guy that, essentially it was Dredd, right?
It was Dredd.
It was Dredd in the main ballroom there, and talked a lot about, what happens and gaining that masculinity back and gaining.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I don't know how. So the guy's name is Yogi, and he was. He was wearing, I don't know where Yogi is based out of, but he's their region's Olaf, right?
So he's a Carpex / Raleigh. I think he technically lives in Raleigh, but so, he would wave that Carpex flag in that Tiger.
Dude, that dude would wave any flag he can get his hands on, because but that was the thing, so every region has, I don't know why it's like that. So the Fort, we're lucky we have Olaf, the Olaf, right? And but every region has, and so he's that region's Olaf, right? In the sense that he has that same unbridled, completely, you cannot, there's no ego. He is just as genuine, and there's no guile. It is just, this is who he is, right? And he's completely passionate about F3 and about what it did for him. And so this guy, we're in the Q&A session, and people are asking great questions. And there was a lot of really strong answers and great emotion and different things that came out of that. And Yogi stands up, and, people are supposed to be asking questions.
I said, he's not going to ask a question. I can guarantee him.
He's not asking, I
promise you, he's not asking.
Yogi is wearing this.
Church called a testimony.
Right. I started calling him Yogi Exotic because he was wearing this shirt that is fully printed across with a tiger. And from the distance that he was at, I thought it looked like he was wearing some kind of white vest or something. And the middle was orange, and Yogi's got a little bit of a tan. And I thought, is he like bare chest?
Yeah, that's his Sicilian blood. Yeah.
Like, what is going on? I thought he was like shirtless. He was like, hey, how's it going? Yogi. Right. I don't know. But anyway, so he stands up and he gives this powerful statement. And I didn't have the heart. A couple of guys leaned over and they were like, was there a question in there? And I was like, don't worry about it. Yeah. But he stood up and gave this powerful statement about, that, and I'll save us the colloquialisms that he used, but essentially that he went from kind of this aw shucks, shrinking violet, like, I suck, Everything about me sucks. And there was something about when he got into Q, his first workout, that he felt like, wait a minute. It's okay. I can be a man. I can exhibit manly things. I can be a leader. I can recapture that manhood or masculinity that maybe has been missing. And that was, I tell you what, man. And then Dredd referenced it as Bing mentioned, in his speech as well. But that's how do you? I mean, and I don't mean to overstate the thing, and I'm not trying to be unkind or anything or discounting Yogi or Olaf or anyone's experience in F3. But I start looking at things and I go, the world has a system. Yogi outside of F3, there's nothing that would provide Yogi that opportunity. There's nothing that would provide Olaf that opportunity to turn that part of them on, and to unleash them as the minivan centurion, the modern day warrior that they are. The world doesn't want them to do that. And some guys would stumble into it anyway, but there are guys that would be successful no matter what.
Yeah, you know what? I know that from becoming a man, a lot of times what needs to happen is a rite of passage. In the past, it was, I got to work out in the field. It might be going to war. And nowadays, men don't have those rites of passage. They go from playing with Tinker Toys to school to college to work, and they don't have these major experiences. Like, I would say sometimes for some men, stepping up to Q might be a rite of passage. A grow ruck is certainly a rite of passage,
Yep.
where you're doing stuff that you never thought you could. And I think, every day we get an opportunity to go through the rite of passage to prepare for that day. And then you get to do it again to prepare for the next day. And I don't know, it just is super unlocking so many men. It's exciting to be a part of.
So part of the story that Dredd told, and I'll just give a little bit of the context in case you didn't watch it. And obviously, guys, it's posted on our Facebook page because we streamed it all live, so you can go see it. But the context was he had met with a man in this man's family, and this man had been through a pretty extensive rehabilitation process. And the man and his family thanked Dredd so much. Thank you for giving our husband back. Thank you for giving our father back. And at the time, he essentially said, if I heard the story right, he said, well, I don't know why you're thanking me. The rehabilitation center helped cure him of his drugs and his alcoholism. And they said, yeah, they cured him of his drugs and his alcoholism, but F3 returned his masculinity. They brought the man back. And it really lined up miraculously, so to speak, with what Yogi said. And that was an incredible takeaway to think about that level of empowerment that can come out of this thing. That shows us that we all know, because we're here, you guys are watching this, this is more than a workout. But to see that man stand up and say that, Yogi, unasked, and then to hear that story later that night about, no, you return the man to us. We got no choice but to drive on.
Kitty, if I could, one thing I thought that has been bouncing around my head, and I was actually talking with the guys at the workout this morning about, is this idea. So mothers and fathers provide different things to kids and to children. I mean, and no one argues that mothers provide a very nurturing atmosphere. But one of the things that mothers do out of the goodness of their heart is they make everything safe. They provide this safety area, right? I mean, all of our wives do it. They're like, don't do that with the kid. Don't do that with the kid, right? So, but what fathers do is we remove that safety net, right? When you're young, you went and did stupid stuff. By the time you're a father, but from the influence of your wife and having kids, hopefully you've matured to understand how to take correct risk, how to take disciplined risk, how to take that risk that leads to good things. And what happens if a man doesn't have that, he lets his wife lead in the home when he should be leading in the home. And then his kids don't grow up understanding appropriate risk and how to step out, because that is what leadership is. Leadership is taking the risk. 43 feet out in front of everybody is a risk. And if all you do is lead your life afraid to take the risk, you're not a man. You don't have your manhood. Manhood is knowing when to take the risk. And when you step out in front of a group of guys and cue, you are taking a risk. Now, for some people, it's more risky than others. It wasn't risky for me because I'd been in the Army and I'd done that stuff. But there's other things that are a risk, right? And I think when we talk to guys and we look at them and we help them grow, one way we can help them grow is and help them achieve this restoring of their manhood is asking ourselves and helping them. And it's very particularly at each of them is where do they need to take a risk? Where do they need to be taught to take a risk? Because it can go either way. If you grow up with a very sheltering mother, you learn now never to take risk and you never grow because you never want to go to the unsafe, uncomfortable place. Or you can grow up taking too many risks and you crash and burn. And that maturity given to us by our fathers is right there in the center of that taking appropriate risk that leads to growth.
I think when you also said Doa around and Kitty and Dredd about giving him his masculinity back, for some of us, we didn't have a good example of a father. We talked a lot about break the mold from a diversity perspective, but in many cases, it's break the mold of who you thought you needed to be or who your father told you that you were. So in many cases, for me, I'm learning at 56 what it really means to be a man, and all of the 5 C's and the vaping and the importance of my concentrica. I mean, all of this stuff is for many men just not a renewed or remade. It's a first exposure to what it means to be a man. So
Very true.
Great point. Great point.
We've had a long discussion that's about that, haven't we, Jimo? Yeah.
thank goodness.
For those, I think you all know, I'm here in West Virginia and I'm visiting with my parents. And for those who don't know, watching this, my father has Lewy body dementia, which is essentially Alzheimer's, but you also have hallucinations and you basically forget everything and at the same time see stuff that's not there. And he is steadily made, since last Christmas, he's been steadily making progress down. And yesterday I tried to get some work done on the farm and he said some things that were very hurtful and completely forgot about them, I guess, later and whatnot. But one of the things I saw is that there are a couple men here in the area that are able to keep him calm. And neither of them are young. They're both over 70. They're his age. They're his peers. And as I'm sitting working today, I was, doing things. It dawned on me that as men grow older, part of the disease is that he's able to still connect with men that he has shared experiences with. And both of these men that he's able to connect with are business owners in and of themselves. They have shared experiences with him of difficulty. It's essentially what we do in F3. It's just real life stuff. And men used to have that. They used to have those shared experiences. And I look at his mental health. If he didn't have these two men in his life, I mean, his mental health would be even worse. And I think, and then I project forward and I think about I was like, we're all going to get older. And in F3, many of us, hopefully none of us, but some statistically, many of us are going to suffer with these. There's nothing worse than losing your mind, but many of us are going to have to go through. But I wonder, will F3 be that buffer that helps a lot of us age better and older?
Yeah. Well, so check this out, Gobbler, right? Like this organization's been around for 10 years. So guys that started at the beginning could legit have F3 friends, buddies, real friends for 10 years. Some of us that have been a part of this for a couple of years, or even guys that are coming into it now. One thing that jazzes me up is thinking about 10 years, 20 years from now, the bonds that will have been built. I think one thing that I know our team cares deeply about and works, a lot on is trying to protect, define, encourage what the culture of the Gloom is like, what the culture of that workout is like. So a couple things I'm hearing today is, look, that's why this thing is peer led. So men have the opportunity to lead. It's also why that COT, where men can speak to each other with their shields down for a moment, with real vulnerability is important, right? So we get often asked, what age can my son start coming out? When's it appropriate for kids to attend? And one thing in this conversation we're having today, and you're never going to hear men on this call, maybe a couple, would say, I think the age is this. Because honestly, you guys got to figure that out locally, what makes sense. But one thing to consider is, can a man lead as needed? Can a man be as vulnerable as he needs to be? That makes this thing more than a workout if he's in the presence of young kids, right? If he's not, shoulder to shoulder with another man. It was just something I was thinking about as we're kind of walking through this. I know it's something that comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, a
It
lot
is.
of times you want
I
to
get that question all the time. Oh, sorry, GMO. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of times you hear, well, these kids need role models, and it's great for them to experience that in the gloom. And it might be, right? But it also, you got to think about the guys maybe who were invited to a free workout and kids are there, or they're struggling at home and they they want to get away from their kids. So you got to think about maybe the guys that aren't there or who maybe struggle with that are challenged by it. So
I
That's
think
a
we
great
hear
question.
across the nation, different ways, different regions handle that. And as I said this past weekend, like there's no rule, we don't know what works best. We're still figuring all this stuff out, but what works in the Suncoast might be very different than what works in Apex versus Cherokee. And, each region has the ability to set their own guardrails on some of those topics as long as they fall within those 5 core principles. But yeah, we've seen some 2.0s, especially on the older end of the 2.0 spectrum, who've had phenomenal benefits. But there's also understandings of what they could also be experiencing if they're choosing to get there at 5 a.m. on a weekday. Maybe a weekend, a son might experience something a little bit more 2.0 sun friendly. But at the end of the day, you got to look at what your region's kind of defining as what's right for that region and the experiences they've had. And you know what? It's what F3 is all about. It's a great test of leadership. Like, how do you handle it? And I think, Gobbler, you've talked about it time and time again, is, how do we handle these challenges as leaders, and what are the outcomes of our decisions, and how does it impact it? And is it a 2.0 once a week workout that you purposely define if there's that many 2.0s interested? Is it or is it a blanket no 2.0s? That's not for us. That's not for the 6 of us to define.
Right.
That's for your region to define. That's for you to discuss amongst your leadership teams to define. But at the end of the day, think hard about the ramifications of that decision, or what maybe you could do in your region to appease both sides, and making sure if you have the opportunity to include those sons in the workouts.
yeah, I think it could be a yes and, right? Maybe we have beatdowns with men, and we also have 2.0 beatdowns, special kind of designation for that, or we have 2.0 dad camps, F3 dad camping. I think a lot of regions do that kind of activity as well.
GMO, you brought up rites of passage earlier, right? I mean, this is a great way where you can weave these in, where you can be like, hey, it's a rite of passage for you to go to the workout at X age, right? And these are, what I challenge leaders to do is don't look at these as problems and challenges. Look at find the opportunity in there and approach them with, you're having these quote unquote problems, but really opportunities, because men are doing great things. That you have a man who wants to bring his son out and rub shoulders with other men. That's a good thing.
Great.
But you
That's
also
a good
have
thing. That's a
men,
good thing. Yep.
you also have men who want to be vulnerable with each other. That's a good thing. Now you're the leader. Figure it out.
Yep.
Well, that's the tension of leadership, right? But I see CSD nodding his head, and now I'm curious, because I know I have lots of opinions, and believe me, I'll express them.
Oh, really?
But I'm curious.
So I think it's a mixture of kind of things that kind of evolve based on just the workout and the culture that your region does create. I mean, there's workouts where in Cherokee where I am, where like Crossroads is known, like you don't bring kids. Like it's that group of guys. They're a little on the weird side.
I think Crossroads.
and I think that those kind of things happen, right? We've got another workout that we call Clinic, and it's like in the downtown of this really cool town called Woodstock, and there's 2.0s there all the time. Like, that if you go to that workout, there's probably going to be 2.0s. I think that where the guys then want to come and express their opinions and find their vulnerabilities and actually have these in-depth conversations, you probably know that's not the workout you're going to. And that's going to be the same at every region, right? I mean, these cultures create and form on their own, whether or not you have set rules. And it's the same way that we're saying there's no set rules from F3 Nation. Even inside of the regions, these little workouts have their own cultures within their own regions. Yep. And I think the only risk you run there is probably with like an FNG. And if an FNG is coming with a 2.0 for the first time and they're both brand new, I think you're going to have a different atmosphere regardless, right? I mean, everybody's probably going to pull it in just a little bit, and but I think not even just at the nation level, we're not setting it. Maybe you're not setting the rules at the region level. Maybe the AOs are where these things need to be set.
Yeah, maybe as long as we think about being on mission, are we still planting and growing? Are we invigorating, right? Are these AOs, are these regions really on mission? And is this part of that mission? And does it help them grow and bring this to more men?
I think it's important to know too is the future of F3. And that's what, we have a core of about 5 or 6 2.0s, especially when they're in middle school. They could come to a lot of the workouts because of their school timing work just worked out. And those 5 became pretty close, and they'd sit off at their own table at cafeteria. And we often joked about saying, that's the next Nantan, or that's the Nantan of the future. That's the Weasel Shaker of the future. That's first step, and it was, as a father, you're thrilled that your child is wanting to be a part of that. And the conversations they're having weren't video game conversations. They were almost small adult like conversations that they were pushing one another. So I think there's a lot of benefit there. But again, the environment's got to be right. And what you're looking for within a region. And I think ultimately, does it hinder your men from either being vulnerable, or does it hinder that father from getting a good workout because of the 2.0? I think that's where we've seen some of the issues is some 2.0s don't want to work out. The dad might think they want to, but they don't. And they whine, or they crawl over each other or over you. And if you can't get a good workout, then you're limiting yourself. So,
and maybe it's worth a real conversation with that dad. Hey, brother, talk to me here, right? Because seems like the kid's not loving it. Maybe he's trying to just check a box for himself. Maybe it's trying to meet a need that's not there. Who knows? You got to lean in, right? You got to lean in with
maybe
those
his
guys.
I would say maybe his dad was like, "You're going to the workout. You're coming with me."
Kind of defeats
You're
the purpose,
punishing it.
doesn't it?
yeah, sure does.
Right.
Terrible idea. I know we're kind of on top of our time a little bit, but I wrote a couple things down as you guys were talking, and I think everybody's kind of hit on this in some way or other, but most of these points in some way or other. But I'll tell you, so dial back, couple 3 years, I guess it was, sitting in Slaughter's Mountain House, and the 5 members of the XSLT at that time. So that version of the it's me and Dread and AP and Crotch Rocket and Slaughter, and we're sitting there. And one of the reasons we made all these changes, brought the board in how we did, and made a president and made a CEO and made all this kind of stuff, right? I remember we specifically said we want to set this up in a way that will have generational impact. We want to make sure that this is something that lasts again, generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. So, tuck that in the back of your head, right? So that's always in the back of my mind of how am I doing that? How are we making sure that our culture is set up in a way that will allow for that? Now, some of that's structure, right? And we've got that, and we're continually massaging that and working on that. But some of that is culture. Are we culturally allowing for next generation? I'll say this. The word rules has been bandied about a bit on this call. If I hear that, I'll smack that right out of your. No. Look, the problem with rules is rules are dangerous because you can't ever make enough of them. Right? If I make a rule for this, I got to make a rule for that. If I got to make a rule for that, then I got to make a rule for
Coming over here
this.
for this, a little bit of this, a little bit of
I
that.
got a
A
little
big
rule here, got a
bubble.
rule there. Wait, I got a rule.
Oh, no. Reel them back in.
So I know it's
I kind of wanted to keep going.
right before we started, I was talking to that idiot accent, and Jimmo was like, "I'm going to wait for Helmut to take a couple of deep breaths because clearly he hasn't had his medicine." No, I'm just kidding. Or maybe I should talk to someone about that. I don't know, but the point is that you just can't make enough rules. There's no way to cover all the things, right? And that's why we have principles, as Gobbler mentioned, as Bing mentioned, as Gmo mentioned. So yes, you said kind of same things, right? We all said it, right? But the culture, the practice, if you will, versus a rule, the practice seems to kind of shake itself out to some degree, right? In Cherokee, you ain't going to Crossroads, I presume, because these men are filthy and horrifying.
Yeah. It's a little
sounds like
weird.
my kind of place. Right?
Do they post Friday
Sign me
morning?
Yeah,
Also,
right.
Yeah.
bucket list.
Come on
Right.
out.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, and there's workouts like that in Metro. I would be shocked if a kid ever showed up in Metro, because there's a culture there of, and a lot of those workouts, like,
Dude,
first
in
of all-
Metro, they'd just flat out be like, "What are you doing here?"
yeah, exactly. Right. They would just be like, you're going to want to get back in your car because we're leaving.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
Whatever. That's not entirely true, but it's some of those workouts. It is. But I love that in Cherokee, there are places, and I presume there's some during the week. Certainly, as being said, maybe Saturday sometimes is a little more friendly to others, but that it's sort of just evolved into that. I think the problem is, and it's a cultural problem, not only in F3, but in our world, where we really love the idea of rules, because then we get to outsource the thinking and decision making to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not appropriate for a leader. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to outsource our decision making. We're here to take all the facts in best we can, get as much information as we can, and make smart decisions based on our belief system. Read Q-Source, right? You can figure out how to make a decision, but that's the whole thing, right? And to some degree, age isn't important. Some kids are ready to go and shoulder a workout at 10. Some wouldn't be ready until they were 18,
Or 30.
right?
Or 50.
Or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Some might shoulder that burden just fine. So that's the other dangerous part of a
You
rule.
really
Sorry, go
say
ahead.
something. It's amazing because I was going to say, you basically, what you've just said is the same thing I've said to my NCOs in the Army. Is I tell them, but first of all, if you don't know, the Army has a lot of rules, a lot of
You in
regulations.
the Army?
Right? Yeah. So I tell them,
Do you do
I said,
squats?
look, I said, if it's in the reg book, it's for you. Go do it. I said, but if it's a shade of gray, if the regulation doesn't apply, you bring it to me, because I'm the officer, right? And that's the thing as leaders, your rules, we need to make there needs to be rules or policies, but I don't care how good you write it. It will only apply to 80% of the time. And you, the leader, exists for the 20%. The time where the rule, the regulation, the policy doesn't apply.
Yeah. Well, and I even think in our world, in this thing that we've created in F3, we're to even disrupt that even a little bit more. We are to even say we even want less. We don't need a regulation, right? Right? Like, we have got these 5 things. We're asking you to do 5 things. You got to do the rest, right? And let's supplement. Let's add resources in. Let's give you other things to consume, to read, to hear, to help shape you as a leader. But as it relates to this thing right here, right? Stick to those, and then let's see how we can build on top of that together, I think.
And we've had men in the past who have said, well, they wouldn't let my kid come, and so we're leaving F3 and we're never coming back because we think it was terribly led and you people are awful and we hate you. All right, whatever. Go start F4, and the 4th F can be, friendly to kids. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever you want it to be. I don't know. But what I can tell you is, you got a problem. And this is really where a lot of it goes sideways, right? Is a guy decides he wants to bring his kids. Guys don't actually go talk to that guy about the fact that they don't want the kids there.
Yeah.
And they make a big stink about it. They go nanny into the nantan. We got to tell him not to come anymore. We should make a rule about that. Oh, because you don't want to have testosterone. You don't want to have your testicles. You want to make sure that somebody else does your dirty work for you because you're not going to be man enough. Well, I'm very, very sorry, friend, if this is the first time you're hearing it. You are a grown man, and you're going to have to go to that guy and say, hey, man, help me. I find this, I feel it in everything in me says this is a terrible thing, and I hate that the child is here. I'm probably biased for some strange reason. Will you help me? Help me understand why it is you feel like you want him to come. Maybe I can change my mind. Or, look, I've been very clear. There was a guy in our home region, and it's not important who it is, but he would bring young kids often to workouts. And he may still, I don't know. He doesn't show up where I am. I know that because if I'm there, I'm the same pretty much everywhere I am all the time, no matter what. Which means my mouth runs just as much, which means my language is the same, which means my commentary is the same. In fact, in the gloom, it probably turns up just a notch. Because
it does.
Look, as leaders, I don't have the freedom to talk like that or act like that or be that way other places. I have to be super appropriate. And I promise, look, I get a lot of crap. from buddies. You know, they're like, oh, look, the president says, oh, I guess it's okay for us to act like that. And I'm like, it's totally fine for you to act however you want to act. And sometimes I even avoid going to certain workouts because I get tired of hearing that, because that's time for me to be able. Now, I'm not just being a selfish jerk, but if I don't have that opportunity, that actually dents my guardrail. Part of my guardrail to keep me in line other places is that I get to go out there and blow it out.
Have your release.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. Good point.
And so I said, hey man, I don't think you should send your kid home. Absolutely not. No, I would never tell a guy to send his kid home. This is my personal opinion, right? Not the official stand of F3, just so we're clear. Good. Right? Can we flash a banner up or something? You know, Kitty, I don't know later. But you know, I would never tell a man to send his kid home. And I would never tell a man, I think it's inappropriate for your kid to be here. All I would tell him is bring him. Absolutely. But don't expect anything different out of me. Period.
Yeah.
If you think he can handle all that, if he can keep up in the workout, if he can carry the heavy crap I'm carrying, if he can do all those things and he can handle the talk the way that it is, fantastic, man. Because I do think there is incredible value. And I've seen the lives. I mean, there's a couple of kids, and I'll just mention them. One of them whom I have honorarily dubbed the assistant president of F3 Nation out of Kansas City, D- and everyone wants to call him Sneakers because that's his real F3 name, but I call him Squeakers. I can't remember why now, but that's not important. But D- and Squeakers are two of the strongest 16 and 17-year-old kids I've ever met. And they are leaders. They are generations ahead of where their peers are.
Oh, yeah.
They've done 2 grow rucks and they have crushed it. They have led platoons of men in those grow rucks and they have crushed it. So is there value in having kids under 18 at workouts? You're damn right.
Totally. Yep.
I mean, absolutely. But for crying out loud, use your brain, right? Be a man, be a leader. Quit saying, well, I think I need a rule on this. Oh, do you? Okay. Maybe you should go make rule workout place and you could be RWP and have a nice day, because that's not what this is. And it's not going to be that. I'm sorry, Jim. I'll take a deep breath now and shut up.
I would just have to respectfully disagree.
And that's the beauty of a leadership.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So tell me why you disagree.
I disagree because, number one, we're open to all men. I think, plant, grow, and serve small men's workout groups. I think young men need a place. They need this access. I just personally don't believe F3 is the place to develop young men into men. I think that's the father's responsibility. I think there should be other organizations that do that. I know when kids are there, and a lot in St. Louis here, you start to see, and there's a lot of guys kind of DMing me to say, hey, can you help me with some guidelines? I don't want rules, but I'm seeing where the COT is shutting down. I'm seeing where guys aren't sharing. And that's what we need to make sure that guys have a place, not just to stink and cuss, but also to share their hearts, or at least see other men willing to do that. And I don't believe that happens necessarily with, young kids there under 18. So.
Right.
See?
Well said.
Perfectly fair. I mean,
Right. So in summary, bring them, don't bring them, maybe bring them, maybe don't. I don't know.
Try it out.
you know what? I think in summary is kind of what G-Mo just said. And I think the two things play off each other. And Gobbler, I think it's like you want to wrap it up too, but the answer is, yep.
Yeah.
Use
and
your brain,
and lean
be
into
a
that,
man.
fellas. Yep.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
Talk it out, think
Learn.
it through, read the room. If you keep bringing your kid and everyone's like, freaking kids here again, like read the room. Don't be an idiot, right? Take them somewhere else. Start a different workout. Start a different whatever you want and make it however you want.
Yep. All right, fellas. Anybody got anything else? We got to get going. Perfect. Awesome. Great stuff, guys. As always, we'll be back in 2 weeks, right? We're coming at you every other week. Guys, thank you for always picking up our 6. We'll do the best we can to pick up yours. See you later.